Karibu, my first Swahili word. I'm Patricia Buckley, and today my title is host mom. And I'm here to share with you a wonderful experience about hosting not only my first exchange student, but hosting a Muslim student. Stephen has agreed to be my Vanna and is going to pass out a photo album that we took, adding all of the pictures we had for Samira in her time here, and we call it Samira's American Safari. So if you get a chance, take a peek, and feel free to see me later, and we can answer any questions. Without further ado, let me introduce you to my host family. So that's my husband, John, affectionately known as the big guy. And that's Samira, and she's from the island of Zanzibar. And of course, that's me. So, as I mentioned, we were a first-time host family, and probably not unlike everyone else, had millions of questions. How will our host daughter fit in? Will she make friends? In this particular case, would her classmates react to her differently because of her appearance? What about the headscarf, and how would that be perceived? And what about no pork? And what about dogs and other pets? Well, we've already heard that no pork is really no big deal. And as for the dog, it was a huge deal in our house. As Marcia Goebel will tell you, I have a 92-pound Bouvier de Flandre. Saliva is a condiment in my home. I'm not kidding. Ask Tara from the State Department, who met my new golden doodle, jumping up on the couch. It's nothing short of a circus, but we survived okay. And what about praying 5 times a day? How would my husband and I accommodate that? And would it impede on weekends or extracurricular activities? Or would it be an issue in the school? So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm no stranger to diversity. And I now live in small town Sedona, population 15,000, with almost no diversity. And I really, frankly, wasn't sure how this was going to go, but I was really sure that we were going to give it the best shot ever. The more I thought about it, the more then I thought, wow, I wonder what she perceives about me. What are her perceptions about Americans? Is the fact that I like to have a glass of wine at night going to be a problem? God, I hope not. So I'm not ultra-conservative, and then I was worried too. Was that going to be a problem? And honestly, while I knew a little bit about Ramadan, I certainly didn't know a whole lot about Eid. And then there was the issue of the big guy, my husband, who, having raised boys, was concerned never having a girl in the house. And Marcia will tell you, he's a hard shell on the outside, but really a mush on the inside, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. But like most good Americans, we decided we'd go in with both feet, and we decided we'd make it work. We got on the internet and did some homework. And I'm happy to tell you in truth, we didn't know what to expect, but what was about to unfold is nothing short of a life-changing, amazing experience that we had. Our story. We were a welcome family initially, and I got hooked in with Marcia, and I say hooked in because I was a reference for another family. And she said, so would you ever consider hosting? Sure, why not? And you know, it's only 6 to 8 weeks, and I said, okay, great, we can do it. Well, we bonded really quickly with Samira, and Samira loved the fact that my husband did most of the cooking in the house. And I would jokingly say to her, Samira, that's how you tell a good husband. Make sure you get one of those for future reference. Thankfully, and I say thankfully because we did bond so quickly and so fast that the original host family, for health reasons, couldn't host, and we got to keep Samira. Yes! And as I mentioned, we were determined that she would have an experience like every other kid, despite her differences. Together we overcame obstacles, and very frankly, that was probably the area where I didn't think we'd have them, and we had them, but in places where I never would have expected. So I'm embarrassed to stand here today and tell you that even in my own family, it happened. So my best friend from high school, who I've known 30-odd years, said to me, "Wow, I'm amazed that you could convince your husband to host a Muslim exchange student. My husband would never do that." "Really?" I said. "She's like everyone else. She's no different." The worst shock came with my own brother, who on 9/11 was at 7 World Trade Center and saw things probably none of us would ever want to see. But he said to me, "Really? You're hosting Al-Qaeda in your home?" Wow, was that a teaching moment? And I said, "You know, we grew up in the same family. Whose gene pool did you get?" Samira had the opportunity to pray, to fast, and she totally stayed true to her beliefs. But when I tell you she was a child who was open to everything here in America, Marcia will tell you she missed not a beat. She saw everything and experienced everything, and it was just a wonderful opportunity for her, and not to mention for her host parents. At night we would sit down at dinner, the three of us, and we'd pick a topic to talk about. Maybe it was marriage, perhaps it was religion, the government, careers, the role of women, sometimes the abuse from men. Always interesting, always educational, and an opportunity for us to learn and share. The interesting thing, as a Catholic, we'd go to church every Saturday, and I wasn't really sure how to position it, but I did say to her one Saturday, "You know, we're going to go to church. You don't have to go, but if you'd like to, we'd be more than happy to have you join us." From that day on, she came to church with us every Saturday. And I used to tease my Catholic friends that she was the only Muslim girl going home knowing the Our Father better than most of us Catholics in the pew. But it was a bigger issue. It was the issue of understanding the universal commonalities of religion. And at the age of 17, boy, she taught us an awful lot. So for me, a picture paints 1,000 words, and I just have a couple of pictures to share with you. So Samira was the first of a strict Muslim to join the Sedona exchange group. She was one of 6 girls, and if I could tell you that this was a sisterhood like no other, they still keep in touch today. And yes, welcome to my world. Determined that she wouldn't miss any experience, my little witch on Halloween loved trick-or-treat, loved the candy, and won one of the top 3 costumes at the high school. And by the way, that hat had to go in the suitcase on the way home. And then there was sumo wrestling. But really why I've included this picture is not because of the sumo wrestling, it's what it represents. One of the most important things for Samira was to make an American friend. And here is her BFF, or as Samira would call her, my moochie woochie. And then there was the untraditional celebration of Christmas. 3 families, ours included, packed up all of our belongings and 2 exchange girls from Africa and took them to Pagosa Springs for winter sports and to teach them about the snow. You know, as an adult, sometimes you never know the impact you leave on someone. But sometimes we're fortunate enough to learn it a little later. So this year on Christmas, when other students were writing Happy Christmas, you know, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever, I knew from Samira that that was one thing that she couldn't express, was that Merry Christmas. So she sent me a note instead. And this is the picture that she included. And she said, "My first Christmas, I'll never forget it. 1 house, 17 adults, 5 dogs. I love playing in the snow. Hema, your curry was the best food we had while we were there. I can't remember when I had more fun. I love you, my host family. She had the opportunity to teach, or to learn to teach English at the workshop offered by PAX, and hats off to you for that opportunity. It not only exposed her to other cultures and other diversity, but I think it also helped build more confidence in Samira. She was afforded a trip of a lifetime. She and her 5 exchange sisters got to take a week-long trip to Washington, D.C., and the significance of this photo just sends a chill up my spine, because I asked her about it, and it's at the Martin Luther King Memorial, and she said, you know, we have dreams too. And then there's my diversity in motion. So I took Samira, a couple of her exchange sisters, her BFF, and 2 friends from Ghana and from Nigeria to the Musical Instrument Museum. And to those of you who live in Arizona, and to those of you who are visiting, if you haven't had the opportunity to go, it's worth every minute you spend there. They boast of the largest collection of global instruments from around the world. And I got to take each one of these students and show them the museum. But really, the learning was mine. They showed me all of the instruments, the dances, and the music from their countries. It was not only educational, but it was a pure gift to be able to see the look on their face when they could see and share their country with me after being away for 10 months. Later that afternoon, we took a walk down to what they call the playroom, which is an opportunity for you to touch and play with the instruments. And the 2 boys played the drums for us, for 500 patrons that day. And that was just a completely awesome experience. And last but not least, I was very fortunate and able to share with Samira the hood, as we call it, my hometown, all the sights, the sounds, and the food of New York City. It was the best trip ever. Sometimes you never really understand the value of a moment until it becomes memory. And that really sums up our learning. In reality, many of the things we worried about never happened. She felt safe enough to sleep the entire night through, even with the light on. Because in Zanzibar, at night, bad things happen, so you stay awake and you don't sleep the night through. But she finally got the fact that she could leave the light on, and it was all good. We did limit our pork intake, and it really is no big deal. It was a personal choice. She thankfully learned that social drinking is okay in our society, and she peacefully coexisted with my 92-pound dog, Raven. Although the one disappointment I have is she never did pet the dog the 10 months she was with me. I tried hard. We were able to learn about praying forward. So to those who are worried about, oh my gosh, they pray 5 times a day, how am I going to accommodate that? Basically what it is, it's the opportunity for them to do 4, 3, or 5 of their prayers in advance for the day if they know their activity is going to prohibit them from praying. I learned also about downloading the Islamic prayer times from the web. Thank you, PAX. Really just so that I knew when she was praying, so that I didn't interrupt and I wasn't offensive for her special time. Most of all, she loved having a father figure, somebody in her life who would participate, which was very different from her home life. Yes, life can change without any notice. And Samira wrote an article for a newspaper, and I'd just like to read a little excerpt from it, because these were her learnings. The freedoms that I've experienced here in America have helped me grow in ways I couldn't have imagined a year ago. I see myself as a completely new individual. This year was just really supposed to be about learning the U.S. culture. Instead, I discovered myself and what I want to do with my life. I'm beginning to see the path that will lead me to a goal of career in international relations. My experiences in the U.S. have helped me understand the differences in other parts of the world. My daily interaction with the American people has helped me to learn more about their differences, and I owe a debt of gratitude to the American people, my second home. So I talked to Samira and I told her that I was giving this presentation today, and I asked her a couple of things about what do you fear when you arrived, and what were the things that you learned, and would you change anything? And her answers were very interesting to me, and what she feared was that would she be welcomed in a new family, and would we embrace her differences? And she told me that she never second-guessed it, because at the end of the day, as soon as she walked in, she knew she was home. She made American friends, and she had great exchange friends. And the things she learned about Americans were that politics aren't violent. Americans are not as bad as she had perceived. And yes, like every place in America, there are smart kids, kids with challenges, and kids that are pretty average. And lastly, I asked, what would you change? And her response was, I wouldn't change anything about my experience, because each and every moment has made me the person I am today, good and bad. I had obstacles to overcome, but with the help of you and the big guy, I was able to overcome them, and that's why I'm where I am today. The program has changed me a lot in terms of my thinking, about being punctual, and the way I value my family. So, a host family's transformation. God, 15 minutes. Seriously? I could do this for a day. So it's really hard to sum up what this experience has meant to my husband and I, but I do tell people it's the best experience that we've had in 20 years of being together. I never hosted before, I never knew what to expect, but it was probably the most rewarding experience. I now have a deepened understanding of the Islamic faith. We certainly received much more than we gave, and it was just a tremendous opportunity. But then reality hits, and it's the adjustment back to normal life. My little butterfly. So 2 weeks before Samira left, we started down the path of, well, you know, what are we going to pack and how is this going to go? And she came to my husband and she said to my husband, John, do you think that when I get married, you would participate in giving me away? It was a complete bucket alert in my house, and that evening for dinner we didn't have a topic, we just cried. All three of us. And my husband, who you saw in the early picture, who's really a hardcover on the outside, as Samira would describe him, was absolutely melted. And you're crying. Don't start me. I still have 3 slides to go. So a week before she left, we threw a party. All of our friends, all of her friends. It was great. And somebody brought this balloon, which was a butterfly. And boy, when I tell you she couldn't have fit a dime or a piece of paper in either one of her 2 suitcases. She had so much to bring home. I actually had an extra bag, but when we got to the airport, I weighed the suitcase and then stuffed a few things in and zipped it up so that I knew we'd be at 50 pounds. But she couldn't take the balloon, so she left the balloon behind. So we went to the airport and we bid her goodbye, and of course we cried and cried. And she waved goodbye and held it together and made me promise that I wouldn't cry. So we got home. My husband and I went downstairs to her room. And here's the big guy in a bucket of tears. And I'm like, dude, what's up? What's the matter? And he said, you know, I just realized the symbolism of a butterfly. And I go, what? And he goes, you know, she was like our little caterpillar, here in her cocoon for 10 months. And over that time, she developed into a beautiful, beautiful butterfly. The only problem is, she's flown away. Yeah, life goes on. The good news is, although Marcia thinks we communicate a little too much, she did call me this morning, we communicate via phone, Facebook, Skype, and she's taught me about something called WhatsApp, which if you haven't seen recently is the hottest little technology thing where we can text back and forth internationally at no cost. We've exchanged gifts. She sent us spices from the island of Zanzibar, and we are planning a trip to Zanzibar in December, and I can't wait. Transformation, I'll let you be the judge. That is my beautiful butterfly. So, would I advocate for hosting a Muslim student? Absolutely. What would I tell you? What would I tell you to tell your host families? Just do it. It's the most rewarding, enriching experience. You'll learn a lot. You will expand your horizons. It will test your values, but it will make you reaffirm those values every day. Just do it. You will never look back. It will never be something you will regret. Let your voice be heard. What did it mean to us? It meant the world. We'll always be connected to Samira in our hearts, and I have a little bit of a hole from when she left. And to PAX I say, this is your little tagline, or it appears on a bumper sticker, changing the world one student at a time. But I would like to suggest or recommend that instead of one student at a time, it be one family at a time, because really, that's what it's all about. Thank you for the opportunity.